Welcome back to another episode of How Did They Grow? I created this podcast because I wanted you to learn how other coaches, freelancers, service providers, and course sellers are growing their business, landing 10 to 20 new clients every single month, paying them 50, 100, 200K months. See, if they've done it, you can too. And that's just the reality. And I want you to listen to these podcasts to understand what strategies are they using, what techniques are they exploring, because it's in these gems that you can apply it to your business and actually scale things up. When you're ready and you feel like you actually want to learn practical, proven methodologies, or even you want to hire a team that can build you a profitable personal brand, book in a chat with our team because we can guarantee you go viral and guarantee you get clients for your business.
Okay, Kevin, appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks,
so
Kat.
To get started, let's go for it. So tell us more about your story and how you got to where you are today.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, I appreciate that question, and all the listeners. Just so everybody knows, it's 4 a.m. over here in Boston. Okay, and it's not sunny yet because it's November. My story is simple. Based on, I'm gonna throw this in for a plug. Based on my first book, Always Pick Last, I actually am the original Karate Kid. So I haven't seen the checks come in from the movie, which they should, because it's my story. You know what I'm saying? That's just a joke, everybody. But really, I was the kid that sucked at every sport. That's an okay word to say, right? Because I'm kind of Bostonians are kind of blunt. Sucked at every sport, got picked on all the time. Was the last to tie my shoes in the neighborhood, last to take the training wheels off my bike, blah, 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 blah. And then I had a life-changing event. My father, who drank too much, great guy, just drank and ate the wrong stuff, died at 48, and I'm 58. Ta-da! 58, okay? He died at 48. I was only 12. The bullying got worse. And a close uncle, we had a very big family. My mother was one of 8. My father was one of 4. I had 31 first cousins. So you always had people to play with, right? So
wow.
A close uncle taught me taking karate, and that was it. I walked in karate, and the biggest lesson I learned from karate is if you practice, you get better. If you practice, you get better. And for some reason, it just took to me. And my uncle, we didn't have a lot of money. I mean, we're not wealthy. We weren't wealthy at all back then. I mean, my mother lived in a 3-family. We owned it, but still, I mean, we struggled. And my uncle paid for part of the karate, and he thought, well, he'll beat up the bullies after a few months to be done. No, I stayed for 4.5 years. Almost went to Japan. One of my ideas was literally was like the Steven Seagal movie, blah blah blah. I literally was gonna move to Japan for like 10 years after I graduated high school. Train with one of the great masters and opened a school. And then I got smart because at 13, 14, I realized it's okay to ask for help. So I'm in the karate school, and you see these guys that look like me now. I mean, these black belts that look like big gyms and GI Joes, and we had a weight room that came in. And I went to those guys that were in their 20s and they're like, can you teach me weightlifting? They're like, sure. For some reason, I didn't realize it. Weightlifting took to me, and I was strong. So I started weightlifting about 14. By the time I was like 16, I went from 130 to 155 pounds. And I could bench press at 17, I could bench press about 300. Didn't know I was strong.
Cool.
And, you sit there and you go, I always tell people when I go out, because, I do keynotes and, I've got the book, I've got the anti-bullying program. We do a lot with our Self-Defense for You program for realtors. I've got my fingers in a lot of different places. And I always say this, there's a great quote, and I don't know, I think it's unknown, but probably somebody knows it. When your heart speaks, shut up and listen. For some reason, I was drawn to exercise physiology. I never expected to get my degree. I actually was in the wrong class at UMass Boston, believe it or not. I was a sophomore in a junior level class. And I listened to one lecture one week with my old professor, Dr. David Thomas. I'm like, that's it. Now, remember, this is 1987. Madonna, Sting had personal trainers. Personal training wasn't a big thing in Boston.
Yeah.
And I never kind of expected to get into it. And I kept training in martial arts, kept weightlifting. I became a bodybuilder. Then, as you know, we just talked about that earlier. I gave it up for functional strength training. But my first love still has always been martial arts. My second love is conditioning or strength training. And then my third is, it's kind of funny because I know yoga comes from more over the Middle East. When yoga, my ex-wife introduced me to yoga back in 2008, I used to call it yogurt, and I got hooked. I got hooked more than she does. I literally, if I don't go at least twice a week, my head just,
Really?
oh yeah, yoga. I'm a big yoga fan. Big yoga fan. I never, the funny thing was, and it's, I thought all the yoga guys wanted to eat like 1 grain of rice and look like stick figures. Then I met a guy named Rolf Gates. Rolf is a African American guy who is former collegiate wrestler and former ranger. I'm looking at him like, oh, you can look like this and do yoga. I'm in. And then if you listen to people like, we'll get into that later. I got involved with the UFC later on. And if you listen to Frank Shamrock, one of my mentors said he was down at a school. This is 15 years ago. They said, hey, Frank, how do you keep yourself in such shape? He's a big guy. He says, to tell you the truth, most of my calisthenics are yoga based. And I was like, wow. And there's something about that too. So that I never expected to get into this. Did my internship with one of the first personal trainers, and then literally my ex-wife, girlfriend at the time, said I broke off from that person that I was working with. Broke off from that person I was working with, and my ex-wife, girlfriend at the time, said, "Why don't you start your own company?" I'm like, I literally just went, and the thing that really, it's going to sound funny. It's going to sound really weird. So I'm working at Boston Athletic Club down in South Boston, which is now the Seaport. It was nothing back then. It was the premier club. I was, increasing my resume per my instructor, my teacher, for the fitness world. Because back then you can work in a gym, you can do this, you can do that. Personal training wasn't a big thing around here. Remember, you're talking. Yeah. I've been doing this now for over 3 decades, 36 years now in my own business. And I used to have, one of my shifts was 4 to 10 o'clock at night in Boston Athletic Club. Now, Boston Athletic Club was kind of blue collar, white collar. You had both people coming in, and people would leave stuff around all the time. Don't know why I picked it up. Hand to God. Don't know why I listened to it. Somebody left one cassette. Now I'm going to date myself. Cassettes. This wasn't Audible. One cassette behind in Zig Ziglar's, the great motivational speaker, See You at the Top. It was cassette 9 in its whole series. I picked it up. I don't know why I picked it up. Mind you, I didn't have, when I got my new car, when I moved out of my mother's house, I had 4 jobs, and my car was either AC, air conditioning, or a cassette player. I picked AC. I had to listen in my Walkman back then, my Walkman, while I drove back and forth to work. And the cassette, I burnt the cassette out. I listened to it so much. I literally burnt the cassette out. Yeah, I started this company. I had this company going. I had a product on the market that I had a patent on. I was still working at Boston Athletic Club, and I was in a 400 square foot apartment in Pembroke, 40 miles the opposite way of where I grew up, taking care of a stroke patient 3 hours a day in exchange for rent. That's how I started my company. So,
and you were listening to this cassette, and this was the cassette that really changed your entire mindset.
It's a great question, Akash, and I appreciate that. It was the cassette that kicked off. I listened to that, and then all the books of the time. I read like Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends, Influence Other People. I read it probably 12 times at least.
Yeah.
And Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Anthony Robbins. I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it, and I still do it today. Like I'll listen to Dr. Wayne Dyer. I'll listen to Robert Kiyosaki. I'll listen to almost anything. I mean, now with this, having this and having Audible, which both my books are on Audible too. It's great. Yeah. When you look at, you're a young man, and I appreciate this. When you look at it now, I mean, you guys, think about it. I mean, if you can't learn something, you've got YouTube. You've got
it's easier than ever. It's easier than ever at this point. Yeah, literally. We've got access to. Your guys' access to mentors was cassette tapes. Our guy, like for us, access to mentors is just from our phone scrolling on social media.
I appreciate that. It's kind of crazy, but sometimes you have to be careful, right? Because there's so much crap out there too.
Absolutely.
That's the other side. And then everything I've always told my, I got involved with the UFC, and when I give talks at schools or corporations, they said, "So what was your plan, Coach Kearns?" My plan was no plan. I follow this. I literally follow this. And I tell all my coaches, we've certified 2,415 coaches since 2010 on my Burma Kearns MMA conditioning system. I tell all my coaches, I go, you know what? Opportunity knocks every day. You have to decide. And
Yeah.
the way I got involved in UFC, I was training with Mark Delagrati from Sit Yatong, one of the best striking coaches on the planet. He's my Thai boxing coach. Coach Steve Whittier from SBG East introduced me to him, and we were old friends from years ago. And then UFC was just taking off in 2005, and then I ended up becoming the strength coach for Kenny Florian. That was another risk. Kenny was a new fighter and had been on the Ultimate Fighter show, and what ended up happening, he made it to the finals. He didn't do so well in the finals, but Dana wanted to keep him around. So he started going on this win streak. And the big joke, and nothing against Kenny, but the big joke was Dana used to say, Kenny Florian looks like the accountant you want to pick a fight with at the end of the bar. But he's like a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he was training with Mark Delagrani in striking. But he didn't have the typical fighter's body, right?
Right. Yeah.
So in 2006, November 2006, he ends up fighting Sean Shirk for the lightweight title. Now, Sean Shirk was called the Muscle Shark, okay? Kenny was definitely outmatched. He knew it, and we all knew it. He tweaked his back about a week before, 3 weeks before the fight, or maybe less. I'm trying to remember. No, it was 2 weeks before the fight. And his strength coach didn't know what he was doing. Trust me, the guy was young. And Kenny's marketing manager said, "Hey, Kev," and I was a sponsor, so I was on Kenny's shorts. "Hey, Kev," he said, "Kenny tweaked his back, and he only lived one town away." I go, "Where's the strength coach?" "Oh, well, he's back in Vermont." I go, he goes, "Can you go over and help him with your flexibility stuff that you know and this, that, and the other thing?" I said, "Sure." And then, I always love Wayne Dyer, not to jump around, but I have ADD and HD if you can't tell. That's a joke.
We all do.
Yeah. Inspiration, right? When I get inspired, like when you get inspired, nothing stops you, right? So I'm working with Kenny, stretching him out, and then I got this inspiration. I said, "Hey, Kenny," it was a week before the fight, "how about I come out and pay my own way, as we call it out here, on my own nickel, right? On my own nickel. I'll come out to Vegas. I'll stretch you, work, help you, and I just want you to win the fight." He went, "Yeah." So I literally spent $1,500 of my own money, hotel, the whole bit. And I hadn't been to Vegas in years. So if you ever been to Vegas, a block is pretty far away, right? I stay at this hotel by myself. And I'm like, "Oh, it's only a block from where they are." Yeah, it was like 40-minute walk every day. And they were sleeping in because of the fight, and I'm up there at like 6 going, okay. And I had to wait for them to, I would work with them, come back, and then went to the fight. He fought his ass off, lost the fight, and literally hired me. So he was actually, for lack of a better word, the perfect lab rat, because he had a shoulder injury, ankle, and back, and I rebuilt him. And I rebuilt him in my old house, because I had an entire gym in my old house before I got divorced. We had Versa climbers, you name it, we had everything. And I rebuilt him. And then I came up with a system called Berman Kearns MMA Conditioning. And then about a year later, my marketing guy came to me and said, "You've done one workout video, DVD." He goes, "Didn't do well, but you did. It was good, but people don't know who you are. What if we did Berman Kearns, the basement tapes for MMA conditioning?" This is 2007. So Kenny had already won 2 or 3 fights. I'm working with other fighters. I'm working with Stephan Bonner. I'm working with Daniel Gracie. I ended up working with 15 UFC fighters, people like Marcus Davis, George Rosell, Kurt Pellegrino, Spencer Fisher.
And this is all because you took out that money out of your own pocket and made it happen. Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I go, "You've got to." It's like going out. It's like asking for a date. Wayne Dyer would say, "Who wants to live with regret? You didn't ask for that promotion. You didn't ask for that job. You didn't start that business. How do you know? You didn't write the book, right? You didn't write the book." And Wayne Dyer would say, "It doesn't matter if anybody," excuse me, I think it was Les Brown. Les Brown would say, "It doesn't matter if anybody doesn't read the book. It speaks to you. Get it out of your head." So here's the, I'm a big fan of adversity. Like, this tattoo here, this is Thai, because I got Thai all over me. Sumbak Sumbam, be relentless. And my other tattoo is Batman. I love Batman because Batman only has one power, right? He just doesn't quit.
Never yet. Yeah.
You can't, believe me, you're going to get knocked down and stepped on, and you're just going to keep going. You just keep going. That's why you see Rocky posters everywhere in this house.
Love Rocky. It's my favorite movie.
Oh, right. There's the quote right there. Life's hard. It isn't how hard you can get. It isn't how hard you can hit. It's how hard you can get hit and just keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward. Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, I love it.
In November 2007, we had $25,000. Now, mind you, this was 2007, $25,000 to do 3 DVDs with Kenny in them. That's a good amount of money, right? The market, if you remember, well, you were younger, but you probably know you seem smart. You probably watched the market. The market crashed over here. Our sponsor pulled out, and I'm sitting there, I'm going, you know how when something's just in you, you just got to do it? I got to do it. I went to my ex-wife. I said, I need to, mind you, 25 grand was one thing. I said, I need to pull 10 grand out of the house. 10. So I did 3 DVDs, filmed, edited, location, cover design, and had 1,000 of each made. I did it all for $10,000. I begged, borrowed, and stole. We were in gyms before they opened to film everything. I remember we filmed almost all of it during the week that my kids were off from school. I had 2 daughters who were in college. My kids were off from school. And I remember dragging my ass to the gym at 3 a.m.
Wow.
And we did something different. My mentor in the fitness world said, workout videos or DVDs are either instructional or the workout, right? You very rarely see both.
Yeah.
My first DVD, I started doing both. I would do instructional, then I would do the workout. I'm like, I don't know why people want to see me sweat, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So I did both, and it worked. So the formula of strength hypertrophy was phase 1 for the fighters. Explosive power was phase 2, and the third was gas and things, sport specific. We put those 3 DVDs together on a shoestring. Now, to back up a little bit, at the same time, I was writing for 2 magazines in the MMA world. I wrote for Ultimate Grappling, and I was writing for Train Hard, Fight Easy. Then I eventually ended up writing for Fighters Only, ended up writing for Fight for a while. Where else? I was in Black Belt Magazine, Fitness Trainer Online. At one point, I was writing for 5 magazines. I'm like, I'm flying to do, to do certifications and stuff, and I'm like writing articles.
Yeah.
The kid that got a C- in English
is now writing.
C- in English has written 2 books in 333 articles.
Love it.
I hope you're enjoying this podcast. I hope you're taking notes. I hope you're learning so much practical wisdom, because that's what I really wanted from this podcast. Now, I just want to quickly say, if you're looking for a team that can actually help you explode and go viral with your personal brand with proven methodologies, I say this because I've been doing this for the past 5 years. We've got a team of 30 people who are ready to go ahead and explode your brand so you can get clients begging to work with you. Have a chat with one of our advisors. You can book in a chat using one of the links around this video, because that chat might just change your life.
I was going to ask, like, obviously what I'm hearing from these DVDs, this is like the early days of like coaching and program, like creating coaching programs, right? Like this is that. So fast forward to today now, where are you now with the business? Obviously DVDs have like completely gone now. Oh yeah. So different game entirely. Where are you now with the business?
Well, the fun part of the step back is we did that, and then I launched it right around Kenny fought Joe Lozon in 2008. We made our money back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it spread like wildfire to the point where I was on UFC.com, literally.
Wow.
It was on every MMA site. And then we ended up adding 3 more DVDs. And then in 2009, I turned into a certification system. Now, the bad side of COVID is we were doing, I never expected to be like, I was in Okinawa doing a certification. My passport literally said Canada, UK. Canada, UK, because I was back and forth all over the place. I mean, I started going to the UK in 2010, and it exploded. Literally, I was in the UK. I was going into the UK like twice a year. Scotland. I mean, a lot of my master coaches are over there. Scotland, Ireland. And when I got the chance to go to Okinawa, I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't like the flight, but I'm like, it was fun. And Sensei Ben Monair is one of my master coaches. And then you've got people like, Coach Brian Fernie, who's in Scotland, is one of my master coaches and good friends. Where it went from there is it was growing. What people didn't know is I was going through a messy divorce at the same time. And then messy divorce, talking about bad time. I get my divorce in 2018. I end up getting sick. I end up getting majorly depressed, the whole 9 yards, and suicidal too. No joke. I'm completely frank about it, because that's when I'm working on my first TED Talk about this. Suicidal, the whole bit, attempted suicide, and then I come back from that, just starting into 2020, and bang, hey, COVID hits, and 90%. I lost 90% of my business like that.
Down.
So a lot of my followers, we've got, I don't know, between all social media, I don't know, close to 50,000. mostly on LinkedIn. That's where I spend a lot of time. That's how we met.
Yeah.
And they kept bugging me can you redo the basement tapes? Can you redo the basement tapes? Because they're 2000, it's almost 20 years later. So last summer I literally filmed it all. And now in probably about a month, I'm going to be pre-launching this soon. We have a Kickstarter program. I'm going to be pre-launching this. We're going to have our own app. Our app's going to have functional strength training, all the basement tapes from before and new ones. It's going to have self-defense for you, our self-defense programming, nutrition, obviously. And then the other thing that we're focusing on is post-rehab. People that after rehabilitation, acute injury, they're given a sheet of exercises, go off on their own. We want to get on that. So that's launching in the next month or so.
Nice. Love it. So how come, LinkedIn, you've clearly smashed that.
Not enough.
If we had more time, I would definitely dive deeper into it. But how come, obviously, for something like this, it's obviously very active, very movement focused in terms of showcase. How come you've not explored other channels like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook?
I am on Instagram and TikTok. TikTok is because I only have so much bandwidth. You know what I mean? My staff is limited because we have to keep a lean budget. So we'll spend. I've just years ago when I got involved with LinkedIn, my old marketing manager, God rest his soul, said I wouldn't spend that much time on it. But I knew something was up with LinkedIn. I just knew something was up. So that's why we built it up to almost 23,000 people, followers. Now, followers are followers, and one thing I've learned is you have to have quality, not quantity. But I can't complain. We've got like 2,300 followers, and we've got 3,000 people that want our newsletter every week. Not a bad ratio. And I think our open rate's about 72%.
So you mentioned for next year you want to double the business. What's the plan? Is it just continue growing LinkedIn, explore other platforms? What's the
other platforms? And I think the app is going to be a big thing. And the other thing that we're concentrating on over here is I do a lot with anti-bullying over here with my book, so we're going to concentrate on that as well. The app is going to be a big thing. I think when COVID has died down a little bit, a lot, almost non-existent now, thank God. When COVID's died down, I think the certifications will start coming back. I'm hoping. So I think people want that as well. I also see that, we were doing, I do a fair amount of Zoom, not a lot of Zoom. Do I like it? It's okay. Is it the best? No. You can't have it everywhere, right? You just can't have it everywhere. Me, I'd rather be on the ground. I'd rather be in a group training people or one-on-one. And if I have to, I'm like, you know what? This stage, like you want to do a training program, how am I going to see you in Dubai? Be expensive for me to come over the whole bit, or how am I going to see somebody in England? At least let's just say I can get it to be, I like to be, our big foundation is effective, efficient, and safe. At least I can get at least 85 to 89%, maybe 90% effectiveness by seeing people online or with our videos. Yeah. And my girlfriend says, she's like, well, you explain a lot, like 30 seconds. This shows people how short span they are. You explain a lot in your videos. I go, well, that's what my market wants. They want to know what this. I'm not a big. Some of my exercises are hit and quit, but some of them have to be kind of explained. What is this working, et cetera, et cetera. Because I like the science, and most of my people like the science. Because my idea behind content, especially video content, is not only to motivate but to educate.
Love it. That's how it should be. What do you think is holding you back right now in your goals of doubling the business from a both social media and overall marketing standpoint?
Probably, I would say finances. We're working on, because I'm coming out of the past 6 years have been challenging with definitely a divorce, etc. And then obviously, I had to rebuild the business from nothing, from literally nothing. And not to mention two college age girls, which over here they want help to get pay for school. So what are you going to do? You're going to do what you're going to do. Yeah. It's turning around, and the other challenge was when COVID happened, we didn't know what we were doing. Let's do this and let's do that and let's do, because nobody knew what they were doing back then. Think about it. You couldn't train people in their homes. You couldn't train people in a gym. I wish I bought stock in Zoom back then. So I think think the idea to expand the market is just quality. Like I've got now, before we had sponsors like Bosu, Jump Sport, I've got now sponsors coming back to me because they want a piece of this market. My market's the 40 to 50 plus year old that's successful, or the corporation that wants something. They're like, we had classes before called White Collar Fight Club, hitting and holding pads. Kind of funny, right? White Collar Fight Club. People go,
I love it.
Well, that's kind of, racist. I go, no. I go, the idea behind it is it's not a real fight. I'm teaching them how to hit and hold pads. It's just a spin on words. White Collar Fight Club. In our MMA Fighter Fit class, it's been clocked at over 900 calories in less than an hour.
Amazing.
Those were classes that were kind of big in corporations around here before.
Sweet. Well, I think you've got a hard stop in a minute, so I'm going to wrap this up.
No, we got a couple minutes. Yeah,
a couple minutes. Okay, I've got one final question for you then. What's one piece of advice? You've obviously had an incredible story, gone through many, many ups and downs. What's one piece of advice to anyone out there, both young and middle-aged and even old, like 70, 80, 90 plus? What's one piece of advice that you can give to anyone to ensure that they end out more positive on the other side?
I would say this tattoo: hold your vision, keep your passion, maintain and invest in your perseverance, no matter what anybody tells you. If it speaks to you, doesn't have to make sense to anybody else but you. God, universe, whatever you want to think, sent it to you. You keep going forward, and you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get knocked down. You got to get up. Just keep getting up and move forward, one step at a time.
Love it. Listen to your heart. Keep moving forward.
You've got to keep moving forward. Hold that. It was Wayne Dyer's thing, that vision and passion. You hold your vision, keep your passion. I added perseverance, because you can have a vision, you can have a passion, but if you don't have perseverance, you just can't keep going forward. I mean, look at, we were just talking about Stallone. I mean, look at him. He was dirt of the dirt poor, and he even says it. He goes, just ask, ask. Ask the question, throw it out there. You've got to throw stuff out there and see what sticks.
Yeah. You said just ask. What are you referring to there?
Say that again.
When you said, Stallone just said it, he would always be like, just ask, and you agree. When you say just ask, are you referring to asking for help? Are you like, what are you saying there?
All of it. He said that when he was so broke. There's a 10-minute video on Netflix when he was broke on YouTube. He said he was broke. He could sit in his bed and open the door and the window. And he'd try it out for this and try it out for that. And he started writing stories. He goes, but it kept my mind focused. He started writing stories about wrestlers and then boxers. And then he saw the Belliard Brawler. I believe he fought Ali. And he was like, this guy just crystallized his moment. And he was going in for a part, and he didn't get the part. And he said to whoever it was, director or whatever, he says, oh, by the way, he goes, I'm writing, stories on movies, scripts for boxers and wrestlers. He's like, bring it by. Just that, bring it by.
Yeah.
Had
he not mentioned that, never would have happened.
Well, the old one in sales is the answer's always no unless you ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Love it. I love it. I think our listeners and viewers are really going to appreciate that. So thank you. So that wraps it up, Kevin. I really appreciate you coming and spending your time with us. And how can anyone get in touch and find out more?
Well, they can go to the gun show. Just kidding. BurmaKearns.com. You can email me. My email is right there. It's Kevin@BurmaKearns.com. And this actually, I picked this up, believe it or not. I'm old school. Sometimes it's a bad thing, but sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah, and also on LinkedIn, Kevin Kearns, right?
Oh yes, Kevin Kearns, Coach Kevin Kearns on LinkedIn, Facebook is Burma. Everything else is Burma Kearns. Burma Kearns, Coach Kevin Kearns. You'll find me anywhere. Watch for our app coming out. It's coming up in probably about a month, and we're going to be pre-launching that. So you're going to be able to buy a year. You get a year and a half for the 1 year price.
Solid. Love it.
I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. I want you to go away and execute everything there is that you've learned. Now, one thing I will say is if you're in a position where you're ready to actually take things to another level, you want structured, clear guidance, you want a team that can actually help accelerate you, book in a chat with our advisors. Why? We can blow up your personal brand to attract clients begging to work with you. All you got to do is book in a chat with our advisors and we can help make it happen. Sound fair enough?